Ready.
Hi, ladies, it's Miss C.
Hi, ladies, Mr. O'Sullivan, and today we're going to be looking at lesson 6-4, finding the perimeter of a rhombus.
Our learning target today is I can calculate the perimeter of a rhombus by applying the Pythagorean theorem.
But before we go into today's lesson, we do have a few things we want you to remember.
Firstly, the perimeter is the distance around the outside of a shape or a figure, and it's found using addition.
Thank you, Missy. So yes, perimeter is found using addition. We will show you a different way as well that might be a little easier, but you'll see why shortly. And the Pythagorean theorem is something that we learned about a few months ago with Miss Daniel, and you did a whole project on finding the length of a diagonal. And it's used to find the missing side length in a right triangle. This theorem simply states that a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. A and b are your legs and c is your hypotenuse, which is always across from your right angle. Miss C, can you read what we're going to be doing right here with the Pythagorean theorem practice?
We are going to be doing some practice using the Pythagorean theorem. In these questions, we are going to use the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, to determine the value of your missing side length. When it's necessary, we want you to round the number to the nearest tenth. So for the first question here, we see a right triangle with sides 9 and 10. Those are the legs, and so those will be our a value and our b value. So we start by writing out a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We will substitute the a and the b with the numbers 9 and 10 respectively. That gives us 9 squared plus 10 squared equals c squared. 9 squared is 81. 10 squared is 100. Which means c squared is going to be equal to 181. The value of c is the square root of 181, which will round to 13.5.
And ladies, that's your final answer for number 1. So we're not finding the perimeter just yet. The reason why we're doing these examples is because you're going to be using the Pythagorean theorem. So number 2, I'm going to be doing momentarily. This one's going to be a little different from question number 1, because if you look, this time I have my hypotenuse. So I actually have my C value. So this time I'm actually solving for an A or a B. So as Ms. C mentioned before, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to rewrite the Pythagorean theorem. So we're going to write down our a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we're going to label our side length. So I always like to just go in order. I have my A, my B, and my C. And remember, C is always across from your right angle. And it's your largest side of your triangle. So I make my substitution. So I have 4 squared plus b squared equals 7 squared. And we know 4 times 4 is 16. Plus b squared equals 49, because 7 times 7 is 49. Miss C, how do we get rid of our 16 again?
We need to subtract 16 from both sides of the equation.
So we get b squared equals 33. And then to get rid of that square, we always take the square root. So we take the square root of both sides of our equation. And then I get b is equal to what? What was the square root of 33? I forget.
The square root of 33 was 5.7.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we get our missing side length to be 5.7. And ladies, everyone knows how to do the Pythagorean theorem. We all do very well with the Pythagorean theorem. We will do well with what we're doing today. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to be finding the perimeter of a rhombus using the Pythagorean theorem. So I'll read the question and then Miss C is going to go through a step and then I'm going to perform it. So in this question, here's how every question is going to be worded today. The lengths of the diagonals of a rhombus are 20 and 48. Find the perimeter of the rhombus.
So step 1 is going to be to draw an image and make sure the image is labeled and has the diagonals drawn in.
Good. So ladies, what Miss C is saying is that our diagonals are 20 and 48. We have an image right here drawn in. What we're going to do is we're going to label our image with our 20 and our 48. So I'm going to put a 20 right here. That way I know that this whole segment is 20, and then I'm going to put a 48 right here. That way I know this whole segment's 48. And it doesn't matter where you put them as long as you're very consistent.
A note that I just wanted to make is Mr. O'Sullivan has put them in the corners of the shape, but there is no degree sign. We are not talking about the angles. Those numbers are related to the diagonals that are inside the rhombus.
Perfect. And then what does step 2 say?
Remember, in a rhombus, the diagonals are bisected. Use the bisect, cut in half, segments to find the missing side lengths.
So ladies, what Miss C is saying is that we're actually going to be dividing our diagonal. So if I have a 48-inch long diagonal, what's 48 divided by 2? 24. So I'm saying that these two pieces of my diagonal are 24 and 24. And if I have a whole diagonal of 20, I'm going to do 20 divided by 2. So I'm going to have a 10 and a 10. Miss C, what does step 3 say?
Step 3 says to apply the Pythagorean theorem on one of the triangles from step 2 to find your missing side length.
Now, the reason why Miss C said one of your triangles is because this is definitely going to be an edPuzzle question, because we get some crazy answers whenever we say, what do you see? I want to hear how many triangles you see, ladies, because I guarantee that there's going to be some crazy answers. Miss C, how many triangles do you see in this image?
I see at least 8 triangles.
Oh, I don't see 8.
Yeah.
I only saw 4, but there probably is 8. Let's see what the other kids say. But ladies, one of the reasons why we're saying we're going to be using Pythagorean theorem is because where our diagonals intersect is we have right angles. So I have a right angle here, an angle here, an angle here, and an angle here. And all those right triangles are the exact same. And if you look, what we want to do is we want to find our hypotenuse. So we have our A and we have our B. Now we just need to find the C. So as Miss C said before, we always rewrite the Pythagorean theorem. So we're going to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And now we're going to make our substitutions of our 10 and our 24. (10 times 10 is 100. What's 24 times 24 again?
24 times 24 is 576.
Perfect. So I get plus 576 equals c squared. Ladies, 100 plus 576 is 676. So I get c squared equals 676. And then we take the square root.
The square root of 676 is 26.
But that is not our final answer. That just tells us what the side of a rhombus is. Miss C, can you read step 4?
So step 4 is, now that you have your missing side length, find your perimeter. To find the perimeter, you have to add all 4 sides or multiply your side length by 4.
Good. So ladies, if you look at this image, we know our side lengths are now 26, 26, 26, 26. I can do 26 times 4, 26 plus 26, etc. I'm just going to do 4 times 26. It's much easier. And 4, oh, that's way too big. Perimeter equals 4 times 26. And 4 times 26 is
104.
So my perimeter of this rhombus is 104. I think we're ready to do some problems, right, Miss C?
I think so.
Right. Miss C, can you read question number 1?
Yeah, so for question number 1, you were dealing with a rhombus that has lengths, has diagonals with lengths 12 centimeters and 16 centimeters. The goal is to find the perimeter. So as you can see, Mr. O'Sullivan is drawing the 2 diagonals that cut through the rhombus and is labeling them as 12 and 16. From here, we have 4 right triangles in the center of our rhombus.
And then,
label the sides of our triangles A, B, and C. And we need to find the bisects of each of those diagonals. So for the diagonal that is 16, we have the bisects as 8 and 8, because 16 divided by 2 is 8. And for the diagonal of 12, we have the bisects being 6 and 6, because 12 divided by 2 equals 6. At this point,
go ahead.
At this point, we are ready to use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for the hypotenuse. So we do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We substitute the lengths of our triangle, which are 6 and 8. That is true for all of the triangles. 6 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. The value of 6 squared is 36. The value of 8 squared is 64, and that equals c squared. Mr. O'Sullivan, do you want to finish this?
Yeah, sure. So c squared is equal to 100 because 36 plus 64 is 100. And then our final step always is take the square root of both sides. So I take the square root of 100. You can do your prime factorization, double on the inside, single on the outside, or you can just type it in your calculator. And I get the square root of 100 is 10. So Miss C, 10 is my final answer for the whole question, right?
It is not. Remember that the question is asking you to find the perimeter. So from there, we label all sides of this rhombus as 10, and we know that 10 times 4 is going to give us the perimeter. Therefore, the perimeter equals 40.
And that's your final answer. Perfect. Miss C, I loved your explanation. Do you want to do number 2 as well?
Sure. All right. So in this question, we have to find the diagonals of a rhombus. We have to find the perimeter of a rhombus that has diagonals of 8 centimeters and 6 centimeters. As you can see, Mr. O'Sullivan is drawing the diagonals and labeling them 6 and 8. From there, we're going to find the bisects of each diagonal. So the bisect of the diagonal that is 8 is going to be 4 and 4. That's because 8 divided by 2 equals 4. The bisects of the diagonal that is 6 is going to be 3 and 3 because 6 divided by 2 is 3. From there, we have our 4 right triangles. It is 8 triangles if you're being crafty, but 4 right triangles. And we label the sides of our triangles A, B, and C. We then are ready to use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for the hypotenuse, the C. We write out a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We substitute a with 3, and that gives us 3 squared plus 4 squared because we were substituting the b with 4, and that equals c squared. 3 squared is 9, and 4 squared is 16. That equals c squared. We add 16 and 9, which gives us 25. We find the square root of both sides of the equation, which gives us c equals 5. Mr. O'Sullivan, are we done with the problem?
No, we're not. We have to find the perimeter. I had to think for a second. You never know when I just spice it up a little. So now, ladies, what we do is we go back to our image and we make sure that we have a 5 on every single side length. And now what Miss C mentioned before was all I have to do is just take my 5 and multiply it by 4. So I can do 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5, or just 4 times 5. So my perimeter is 4 times 5, which is 20. And that's my final answer.
Mr. Sullivan, would you like to solve question number 3?
Sure. Can you just read the question for me? I hate reading.
Sure. The diagonals of a rhombus have lengths of 10 centimeters and 26 centimeters. Find its perimeter.
So ladies, for this one, the first thing we do is we draw on our diagonals. So I draw my diagonals and I'm going to label them with a 10 and a 26. And one of the things that we do want to tell you is that your images don't have to be perfect. I can't draw a rhombus. That's why I have the clip art here. So I'm going to put my 10 and my 26. That way I know that those are the diagonals I want to bisect. So I know one diagonal is 10. So if I want to cut it in half, I get a 5. So I have a 5 and a 5. And then if I want to bisect my 26, 26 divided by 2, I get 13 and 13. And then as Ms. C said before, we need to make sure that we have our right angles drawn in. We label our sides A, B, and C. And we're now going to apply the Pythagorean theorem. So I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I'm now going to do 5 squared plus 13 squared equals c squared. 5 times 5 is 25. 13 times 13 is 169. And that's equal to c squared. Now, ladies, what we're going to do is we're going to do our combining of like terms. 25 plus 169 is
194.
Good. I was going to say 184. So 194. And now I take the square root of both sides.
That leaves you with C equals 9.2.
Good. So for this one, we'll go out to the nearest 10 and we get 9.2. So Miss C, is 9.2 our final answer?
Yes.
Ladies, we were so close. 9.2 is our side length. We want to find our perimeter. So
I thought you were changing it up.
I know, you never know. You never know when we change it up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do our 9.2 plus 9.2, or you can just do your 4 times 9.2. So my perimeter is equal to 4 times 9.2.
And that is going to give you a perimeter of 36.8.
Good, 36.8. And that's your final answer. So ladies, what you just learned today was how to find the perimeter of a rhombus given 2 diagonals and you don't even know what the side length is yet. Pretty good. If you have any questions, email myself or Miss Colorundo. Have a great day, ladies.
Bye.